You know, Ian, if Nick and Sean don't show up in 15 minutes, we're legally allowed to take over the podcast.
Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Welcome, everyone, to a special Mythos Busters podcast, where there's only two of us, and, Ian, hello.
Hi. We finally get the dead weight.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, this is just cream of the crop right here.
Yeah. Netrunner was canceled, so we said, might as well cancel Nick and Sean, too.
Mm-hmm, yeah. We had a
That's
licensing disagreement with them, so...
Yeah. That Sean and Nick license is very competitive, so,
Welcome to Mythos Busters, where the hosts are made up and the talking points don't matter. Ian, how you been doing? We haven't talked in a while.
Not too bad. I didn't get in as much Arkham between last recording and now just because of life stuff, that pesky thing life. But I did get a couple more plays in of Forgotten Age, and I did get to play the new Pack Threads of Fate once last night, so yeah.
Ooh, that's on my docket for Sunday, so...
Yeah, it's
Nice.
good. I won't say anything spoilery, but I liked it a lot. I think it's the best of the first scenarios of a cycle, which both Miskatonic Museum and Echoes of the Past were decent. They're fine scenarios, but they're not necessarily my favorite. And this one, I think, really started off the cycle on a good foot.
Good. I've played a couple scenarios of the Forgotten Age, the first two, a couple campaigns. I have never had my testicles been beaten as bad as a speed bag as
Sounds
those
about
scenarios. My blind play was just brutal. So
Yeah.
it's rough. Like, I mean, we thought the Carcosa first two were rough, and this is just like, wow. Trauma comes hard and fast because my Ursula, my blind play with Ursula and two others. I think we're playing Finn and Father Mateo. Ursula is at 3 trauma, and I think it's 2 mental and 1 physical, and a single experience. 2 scenarios, 1 XP with 3 trauma.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I like, though, with the buying of supplies, I think there's going to be some interesting story moments. I'm sure Threads of Fate has something to do with supplies, and it's all nice and fancy.
I'm taking the 5th on that one.
All right. We don't have the 5th in Canada, so I cannot.
We won't have it soon in the U.S. either soon.
Right
that's
on.
That's my hard-hitting political commentary for today. I'll stop.
Why don't we jump into news first?
Yeah, let's. Speaking of this cycle that is upon us, we got the 4th pack announced, which is called The City of Archives. So this one is, there's a couple player cards spoiled, but without going into the scenario stuff too much, the scenario looks freaking amazing.
Yeah.
It features the Yithians, which I don't think is spoiling too much, because that's the freaking header image of the article, is a Yithian seeming to have a lot of trouble with the books. I don't know if they're the best choice for librarian, because those hands don't look like they can handle books too well.
Or they handle books too well.
But there's an interesting little twist in here, which I don't know how much of this. I know some people like going completely naked and blind into these scenarios, but I feel like it's fair game if it's in the article, right?
I think so. If it comes out on the FFG website and you're listening to this podcast, I'm sorry if you're trying to stay spoiler free.
How about you cover your ears for about 2 minutes and we'll probably be done. But yeah, you can apparently go into the body of a Yithian somehow, and we get an investigator card for that form. Which, when I first saw there's an investigator card, that was like the first thing that caught my eye. I was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm. Is it kind of like in Men in Black 1, when the alien comes down and goes in the body of the farmer? And he's like, I want more sugar water.
yeah, I'm sure we can earn a sugar water asset, hopefully. Yeah, but you get this body of a Yithian, which has 2s across the board. It gives your allies the Yithian trait, which is fun. I don't know if that's just flavor or if it's going to play off of it. And after you commit a card to a skill test you're performing, you double the skill icons on that card, which is a nice effect, but you're also rocking 2s in every skill.
And it's limit 1 per test, which, I mean, if you have those neutral skills, or a lot of the cards now have double icons, I mean, that's getting you up to a 6.
Yeah.
So, which isn't bad.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, whether it always happens, or if it's like a treachery that throws you in there, or who knows.
And an Elder Sign effect +2, and you draw a card, which is good. I always like Elder Sign effects that do something besides the plus, and then you're 7 and 7 for health and sanity. But although, you know, the subtitle says captive in another form, so I'm wondering if this is kind of like a like straitjacket style thing, like you've been put in a body of a Yithian because you're captive in another form.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm reading too much into it.
So I know this was brought up at the time, and I don't know if it got resolved, but because it basically says your deck remains the same, but you can't use any of your special abilities. So basically your investigator card is getting ignored. So for Lola, does that mean you can just play anything and use anything while you're in the body of a Yithian?
Absolutely. That's like... was it the stubborn detective that blanks your card? Your investigator card? Like, she can just play whatever. And some people have talked about a strategy of, like, if you get that weakness, trying to evade him each turn and then playing whatever. I mean, it's a loss of actions, but yeah.
With this, you don't... Yeah, she's just going to be going through the scenario, like, trying to get... taking body snatch. She's like, oh, stop, don't.
Yeah. Well, then I wonder what her weakness does, too, when it's like, draw a card, switch your role to that thing, because that's on her player card. So do you have a role when you're Yithian formed?
Yeah, I want to say no.
That sounds like a question for Matt.
I feel like there's going to be a few questions coming out of this one, more than likely. So in addition to that craziness, as I mentioned, there were a couple of player cards spoiled. So the first one is... Oh god, it's taking a while to... Okay, there it is. This is a rogue card, so I'm going to read it.
Yep.
This is Slip Away. This is a 2-cost event with an intellect icon and an agility icon. It's trick traded. Evade action. Add your intellect to your skill value for this evasion attempt. If you succeed by 2 or more and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it does not ready during the next upkeep phase. So it's like a super evade, basically.
I'm not... What's our highest investigate on a rogue ally or a rogue investigator right now? 3?
4 for Finn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this... Yeah, then that sounds like a Finn card.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not too bad. I mean, if you get it... Oh, man...
If you can also boost it with Streetwise if you really need to.
Yeah. If you're playing that to the over-succeeding rogue, I think this is a pretty interesting ad. I mean, you still get to evade if you don't do it by 2. It's just if you succeed by 2 and it's not elite, then you get like super evade.
Yeah. I think the sweet spot for this one is in solo probably, especially because thinking of some of the experiences solo in Forgotten Age and even in Dunwich, any cycles where there's lots of hunters around, that this is specifically for hunters, that giving you that extra breathing room I think could be really helpful for those scenarios. And maybe if you're running adaptable, this is also a case where you can kind of sub it in and out depending on scenario.
I think, yeah, Finn is good. This is pretty good in Wendy as well. Because then you're evading at a 7 without any boosts. So, yeah. Neat card.
I think anything that specifically helps with hunters is... which, I mean, obviously this isn't just for hunters, but I think that's the main application, probably.
Absolutely.
All right, so the other player card, we are Seanless, so I think you're going to have to play Mystic.
All right, I'll do my best Sean impression. Where doing my weight sucks. Okay. This is a Mystic asset, Crystalline Elder Sign. It's a 3-cost asset, and it costs 3 XP as well, and it has a single wild icon. It's an item, a relic, and it's blessed. It has seal, and either you can seal the Elder Sign or the +1 sign, or +1 token, and you get +1 to all your stats: willpower, intellect, combat, and agility. And it takes up the... Oh man, I always call this the necklace slot, but it's the accessory slot? Accessory.
The bling slot.
This seems really good in solo, not as good in a lot of multiplayer. Because I like if I seal the +1 or the Elder Sign in solo, I'm getting the bonus of the +1 all the time.
True.
But if I seal it in like a 4-player game, that means everyone else has to do without the +1 or the Elder Sign, and only I'm getting the bonus.
Yeah,
so.
That's very true. It seems like that's a bit of a theme with some of these seal cards. Maybe not with Chthonian Stone, but with... I'm thinking of Father Mateo's signature specifically. Yeah, I guess that's the nature of the beast unless we get one that's a seal and it's a global boost for everyone at the same time, but I don't know if we'll see that.
Yeah. I mean, I really like this. As mostly, like, I'd say a good 60% of my games are true solo. This seems really cool. I think it could probably fit in every Mystic, really. I don't see a Mystic that wouldn't necessarily take this. This is great in Lola.
Interesting. Yeah, you get that +1 across the board without necessarily needing Dark Horse. Or you could do both.
Dark Horse and Crystalline Elder Sign. Yeah, and if you do Relic Hunter and you get both of these out...
How true, it's not unique, huh?
Yeah. I mean... You'd have to play Relic Hunter, which outside of Ursula, I've seen some Relic Hunter Ursula decks going around.
I ran it with Wendy because she had the key, and I was making heavy use of her amulet, so that worked out okay.
Ungar's Thug in the chat says great for Grafina.
Yeah,
100%. This is going in my Safina Grief deck, which I should be publishing soon. She is the chief griefer now. That is just, she is hands down the best. So,
yeah. Now, are you always gonna opt for the +1 over the Elder Sign? I'm guessing.
I think if you have a +1, because if you're playing on, if you're playing Dunwich or Carcosa, if you're playing Hard or Expert, you don't have the +1. You oddly enough in the Forgotten Age, Hard has a +1. But you also have a -6 as well, as opposed to a -5 on the other Hard campaigns. I think that's the number. So it's a bit more swingy, but yeah, +1 every time. Because the Elder Sign is usually fantastic. So.
Yeah, I'm not as up on all the crazy probability calculations, so I'm sure this skews the probability against you somewhat. But then you're also getting +1 to all the stats, so does it work out that your probability is actually better for you, even with a positive token out? I don't know. Someone can get back to us.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm guessing yes, because usually stepping up 1 in a stat increases your chances a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it depends on difficulty too. I mean, like this on easy mode turns into super easy mode.
Yeah, God mode.
OP mode. Oh. Wow, it looks like a fun scenario those are fun cards.
Definitely looking forward to the player cards and the scenario for that one. The rest of the news was the FAQ, which I think you're going to talk about in a second, and we just got release articles for... This has been the month for Arkham releases, so Labyrinths is actually real. I know a lot of people were questioning its existence.
It's April 6th?
Yeah. How many April 6th are going to be in this year? So Labyrinths came out finally. We got Silas novella coming out, The Deep Gate. And Threads of Fate just came out this past Thursday. So
I got mine on Wednesday in Canada. That doesn't happen very often.
And and I believe Night of the Zealot switched to shipping as well. Return of the Night of the Zealot, I should say. So yeah, this is just a content frenzy.
Yeah, June is hitting you hard and fast. Rip my wallet. For other reasons as well, I'm going to talk during technical time. But
yeah, fair.
So going into the FAQ, so I'll do like for once in a blue moon, I'll do a longer rules segment because the FAQ came out. And you know what's funny is usually we post all the news articles that come out on the announcements channel, and it was like 4 days past, and no one had talked about the FAQ. And I was like, did we all just miss it? Like it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, this one was pretty interesting. There's a few big changes. I'll kind of go through a bunch, and then we have a few answers from Matt from questions by email that came out on a rules discussion one that I think are pretty pertinent. Essex County Express changed again, which I think is the scenario that has changed the most.
Oh, really? Through
rulings? Slightly, yeah. So first one is everybody do slots. So the way slots used to work is if you're going to play something, if you had one ally out and you only have one ally slot, and you were to play a second ally, you had to get rid of the first ally first. It would leave play before the second ally came in. That has been changed, and the big push for this, I think, is Mitch Brown, which is Leo's signature card. So the way it works now is let's say you have an ally out, you don't have charisma out or anything like that. You play Mitch Brown, and then or another ally. Once that ally hits the table, then you check to see if you're over your slot limit, and then you get rid of a card. So if your hands are full and you play a third hand card, you can, then get rid of whatever. The big thing with Mitch Brown, because he says you have 2 additional ally slots, which can only be used to hold non-unique allies. So you can play him as a second ally, and then when you go to check, now you have 2 additional ally slots. So you're good.
Interesting. Yeah, that definitely came up for me when I was playing Leo, and I wasn't sure of the answer, so I just I figured it pretty much worked the way that you have to discard and then put it into play, so I just played it safe that way. But yeah, if that's the case, that's definitely helpful, because otherwise you kind of have this game of you put an ally out, and then if Mitch Brown comes into your hand later, then you have to worry about getting rid of what you played.
Yeah, I think this is it's a nice change. I like the way this works. One of the questions I had, which I was really happy about, because I asked about this at last Arkham Nights. I was trying to do like a pro play, and it totally didn't work. But if I have an ally, let's say with 1 health and 1 sanity left, and I want to play a second ally that would bump them out, the attack of opportunity, if someone's engaged with me, I could not take that hit on the ally that's already in play. I would have I would have to discard that ally as part of the action cost, and then I'd get hit on my actual card or wherever, and the ally would come to play. Now you can take the hit on the ally, your second ally comes into play, and maybe that first one died, or it just took the hit and you're getting rid of it. So you can you can mingle around with that stuff. So
yeah, that does open up some options. Good pro tip.
And I'm interested to see if this if there's any really weird interactions with this. I don't know. We'll see. Dr. Henry Armitage got a bit of an errata, so he used to say reaction after you draw a card, discard that card and exhaust, blah, blah, blah. He now says after you draw a non-weakness card. So you cannot change in your weakness for 3 resources, which would just be insane.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us figured that was the case, but yeah, it's good to align the rules as written with what I think we figured was intended.
Yeah, I think that's just cleaning something up so there's just less ambiguity. And I think most people played it correctly, where if you draw a weakness, it just happens. But yeah, so that's Armitage for you. Moving on to Silas. The big question with Silas. So he has an ability. After you reveal a Chaos token during a skill test you're performing, return a skill you've committed to this test to your hand, limit once per round. Now his signature, it's the replacement card, Nautical Prowess. It says, if a Chaos token with a negative modifier is revealed during this test, either draw a card or Nautical Prowess gains 2 wild. So the question was, let's say you commit Nautical Prowess and you draw -8. Do you get to draw a card before you can take it back into your hand? So the answer is yes, because a lot of the other ones are if this test succeeds, draw a card or whatever. This one is if a Chaos with a negative modifier is revealed during this test, you can draw a card, and then his reaction is after you reveal. So the timing basically works the way you want it to, where you can draw the card off Nautical Prowess and bring it back to your hand with his power.
Wow, really? This is informative for me. That's pretty strong, man.
Yeah, the timing words, there's 3 basic keywords in timing in FFG games, and specifically Arkham, is when, if, and after, and they go in that order. So when you would happens first, and then if something happens, that happens after when, and then after is after, obviously. So when, if, after is kind of if you can remember that little phrase, that helps a bit. Essex County Express. So this one was kind of crazy. Basically, so in a lot of the passenger cars, the train cars, I just pulled a passenger car here. It says, forced after you enter passenger car, you must either discard cards from your hand with at least 2 total intellect icons or take 2 horror. And I think the way most people played it is, I don't have 2 intellect, therefore I have to take the 2 horror. Mm-hmm. But what you can actually do, and this was an email from Matt, and it's up on the Arkham DB FAQ. Like if you go to any of the train cars, the little answers below, so if you want to read it for yourself. Basically, you can try to resolve the ability as much as you can. So you can either discard cards from your hand with at least 2 intellect or take 2 horror. So if you choose the either discard cards, you can basically discard cards without intellect icons, but it keeps on going. Like was it Creeping Corrosion? Is that what's the card where you have to discard assets from your hand or in play up to the shroud value?
Yeah, just
the treachery.
Corrosion.
Mm-hmm. So that one, like, if you don't have enough, you basically just keep on discarding cards.
Right.
Because it changes the game state, you can choose to discard cards from your hand until you have no cards, and then it's considered satisfied. So you don't have to take the 2
Really?
horror. Yeah, so this actually makes Essex a little bit easier, because if you just have a card going into a new car, you can try to discard cards as much as you can with as many intellect icons or whatever icons it's asking for. Just discard it. It's changed the game state. You've satisfied it. So personally, I mean, I think there's a big difference between letter of the law and spirit of the law. And so by the letter of the law, this is correct. But I think for myself, I'm going to continue playing with the spirit of the law, where I need to discard 2 book icons or take 2 horror.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the idea behind the design. It's just the way it was printed out, and maybe we'll get a an errata later on. Maybe not. I mean, Dunwich is so far behind us now. But I like it the way it was. But officially, you can do it the corrosion way.
Yeah, I agreed that I kind of prefer the other way. That's probably how I play it. As a long-time Lord of the Rings player, this kind of blows my mind, because in that game you would have to pick the option that you can fulfill in full, and that's how I always assumed that it would work here as well.
Yeah, it basically works like you can pick an option and try to complete it, but as long as you try to complete it as much as you can and it changes the game state. Like if you have no cards in hand,
right,
you can't choose that because you wouldn't change the game state. But because discarding cards changes the game state, then
as long as you put in a good faith effort.
Right, like when something says like discard 5 like take 2 horror or discard 5 resources, you can discard 1 resource. Right? Like you can choose to go the resource one, you can fulfill as much as you can, it's considered satisfied. So yeah, I personally am going to keep on playing it the old way. But
I wonder if that's something we'll see changed or reversed ruling on later or something.
Yeah, I think we'd see an errata on the train cards before we saw a rule change. I think. But maybe not. We'll see. Depends what Matt wants to do. Maybe he just won't change it because it's Dunwich and it's kind of... We're moving on.
Yeah.
Lastly, so a bunch of questions about Ursula Downs. So does her reaction ability trigger attacks of opportunity? The answer is yes, because you take an investigate action. And because you're taking an action, if anyone engages with you when you move to that location, or you're already engaged when you moved, then they will take an attack of opportunity on you.
Because even though her ability itself is a reaction, you're taking an action using that reaction.
Right, specifically because it says take an investigate action. Now that does mean, here's another rule point, you can use investigate actions like on flashlight. So you can use that investigate action. You just have to take an investigate action, but you still are taking an action. So yeah, triggers an attack of opportunity. The move ability on her Elder Sign effect, however, does not. Because it doesn't say you may take a move action. It just says you may move to a connecting location. Very similar to Duke's ability with Ashcan, where you can start an investigate action and then you move, and then you might get engaged at that location, but you finish your investigate action because you did not start your action with an enemy engaged with you. That's that's the meaty rules update.
Oh, that was good. I learned a few things today.
Yeah.
So that'll be helpful for my part. Yeah. Actually, a lot of those rules actually went in the player's favor, which is surprising.
Yeah, I think like a lot of them were kind of and you know what, I encourage everyone to read the FAQ because there's a lot of red text at the end. Red text is new stuff, and just basically a lot of clarifications on a bunch of things. Mitch Brown's, or the slot thing, absolutely in the player's favor. Dr. Henry Armitage, I don't think anyone was playing where you could discard a weakness to draw resources, but it basically levels them out. Silas Marsh, I mean, there's no issue there. It was more of just a heads up, like this is how it works. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think where my head was at, and probably other players, was just like, this is too good to be real, so it probably doesn't work, or the text is wrong or something.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's using his ability, and it's once per round, and it's using his special card, and the special card should be awesome. Right?
Yeah, agreed.
So,
although in the case of some investigators, it's not so awesome.
Yeah. You on the lamb. Oh, yeah, Agnes. Oh, man. If we ever had deck checks, just get rid of that amulet. Oh, I didn't know. It's a great skill card.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's it for me for rules. And seriously, everyone just go read the FAQ. Just read the red text. There's a lot of smaller, minor clarifications on a bunch of things that I wasn't going to bring up because it would just... They're tiny. But read those FAQs because they're awesome. And I feel like sometimes the FAQs give you a glimpse into some of the inner workings of the designers and their designing ideas sometimes. But
yeah, speaking of which, I didn't mention as part of the news, but we did get, there's kind of this new designer journal series on the FFG website where they're having the LCG team kind of talk about different issues, or not necessarily issues, but just kind of what's going on with their game. And they did the first one as kind of damage control when they announced the end of Netrunner, which rest in peace, Netrunner.
How do you damage control that? Hey, your game's dead.
Yeah, well, I mean more damage control for the rest of the LCG community, who of course started freaking out. So they put this out saying, the other LCGs are fine. Let's hear from each designer. So there was one with Matt Newman, of course, and there wasn't too much substantial out of it, but he did mention that he was looking at 3 cards specifically in terms of their power, which were Rex, unsurprisingly.
Yep.
Higher Education, also unsurprisingly. And the Key of East is the final one. So those are those are the 3 I see most discussed. So he basically said, if I'm remembering his wording correctly, he hasn't decided what to do with them. He's just looking at them. He's keeping track of them. So
yeah,
I don't know what will happen with those, but
oddly enough, you see them all in the same deck.
Yeah, I could definitely see Rex getting something like limit once per turn would probably be the logical reining in of his ability. But I don't know if in Lord of the Rings there was a long time where they did an errata for power. They errated for like really crazy broken combos, and but more recently they've started just straight up errataing. I can talk, I promise. The heroes that have turned out to be like uber powerful. So I'm curious how Arkham will handle that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a huge advocate of not nerfing Rex, because I think, I agree, Rex is quite strong. With higher ed, he's quite strong. But I think a lot of people are coming... I want to say a lot of the people who are wanting the nerf maybe play on standard a lot. He's not that great on expert. He's... Right. I would choose Daisy on expert over Rex every time, just because of the one higher stat. Higher ed, super strong card. I think it has some caveats to it, and I think those are fair caveats. I think, like Adric mentions in the chat, if Rex is nerfed, would higher ed really need it? I don't think so. And I think the thing is, if the cards are strong, we need something for people who are playing on expert and hard regularly, and maybe that means a couple cards appear a bit OP, as much as I hate using that, because I don't think anything is broken in Arkham because of the difficulty levels, right? You could take Roland on an easy run and Roland appears broken. It's
right. I don't think, if we were at a case where people are like, oh, we're just demolishing expert mode with no problem with these cards, then maybe that would be a time where you raise an eyebrow and say stuff needs an errata. But I don't think I've heard that from anyone, and if they are, they're probably lying. So I don't know. I wouldn't be completely against it, but I'm just at the point the game is at right now. I'm fine with no errata as long as they're not warping the scenario design to try to counter those cards, which is what ended up happening in Lord of the Rings, where not to go too much into the mechanics of that game, but you can put progress on locations, and there was a certain card where you just exhausted each turn to put 2 progress on locations. So then what they ended up doing is, all of a sudden, instead of you having an average 3 or 4 progress on each location, all of a sudden it's 5 or 6. And so as long as they're not warping it, so to say oh, since Rex is around, we're going to have 3 per clues per location on every location is the counter, then I think we're okay.
Yeah. I noticed too, totally going the Lord of the Rings side, Glorfindel's horse, what's his name? Something
Yeah,
Floss?
Asploth. Yeah,
Asploth?
that's the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. He puts 2 progress on the location. Suddenly, all these locations had 3. Like, it just, there was no more 2s. Yeah. I would really hate to see the scenario design go that way, and I don't think it is, which I'm really happy about. If, oh man, I mean, I don't know. If you hate Rex that much, I think you can house rule him. I think the game is fine the way it is. Rex is a very strong investigator, but that's okay. Like, there should be strong investigators, and there should be strong cards. The fact they're all in Seeker, well, that's that.
Yeah, we've talked about that issue. It's just kind of how the game works. Clues are important.
Yeah. Imagine that. So, speaking of broken cards, shall we build Calvin?
Sure. So do you want to, I know usually we build them on Arkham DB so we can publish it. Do you want to do that on your end, or you want me to keep track of that?
I will sure do it. Why don't we, why don't we both do it? Okay. Then we can kind of keep up with it here. I kind of rummaged through a Calvin deck last night just to kind of get my brain space going.
Yeah.
I mean, so I got to talk. We chose Calvin because he is one of the most unique investigators that came out. Like, he's zeros across the board. That's garbage. Yep.
I think when we picked him, we got a voicemail at some point, which we probably should have pulled out to play, but we'll do that next time. Asking about it, and also, I think it's also probably the most, maybe controversy is overblowing it, but the way people talk about it, it sounds that way. The most controversial reaction to an investigator that's been released is, people say he's utter garbage, and what are the designers thinking, all the way to Calvin is awesome.
Yeah.
And in between.
Yeah, he is polarizing, to say the least. So I'll quickly go over Calvin for anyone who is behind on it or whatever. Just needs a quick little update. Calvin Wright, the Haunted. He is Survivor. He's Cursed Drifter. All his stats are 0. He gets +1 willpower and +1 intellect for each horror. And he gets on him. And he gets +1 combat, +1 agility for each damage on him. And then his Elder Sign effect is +0, which I find just fine. When the Elder Sign effect does something else, +0 is absolutely okay. Very rarely are you taking a test at minus, unless you're just okay with failing. But usually you're boosting to at least a 0 or higher. But Elder Sign effect +0, you may either heal 1 damage or horror, or take 1 direct damage or direct horror. Very, very pointedly direct.
Yeah.
Deck size of 30. He can take survivors 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, spirit cards 0 to 3, and neutral cards 0 to 5. And then he's got his usual 1 basic weakness and his kit. His kit is his signature asset, or whatever you want to call it. Until the end of time, it's a neutral asset. It's a talent. It costs 1. It has a fight and a wild icon, 2 health, 2 sanity. His deck only. Direct damage, direct horror may be placed until the end of time. So it gives him a little bit more of a buffer when you're kind of pushing the max there. And then his weakness is Voice of the Messenger, neutral, treachery, weakness, curse, and pact. Revelation, you must either take 1 direct damage and suffer 1 physical trauma, and take 1 direct horror and suffer 1 mental trauma. Which I would argue, I'm not sure it's that bad of a weakness.
Well, I mean, it could potentially even be beneficial as long as you don't draw out too many times in the course of a campaign.
Like if you were playing an an 8 scenario campaign and you draw it, let's say 4 times, I am really okay with it.
Mm-hmm. I think I feel like sometimes with investigators, the design of the signatures kind of adapts to how powerful they are. I don't know if that's the case or not, but maybe one of the reasons Agnes, say, has a terrible asset is because she's a strong investigator. And similarly, we'll talk about Calvin and our thoughts about him. And I'm not personally on the end of saying he's hot garbage, but some are. But he's a challenging investigator, so it's almost like I feel the design of this weakness is such that it can knock you out and kill you. You know, if you get hit with that when you're one away, but it also potentially could help you a little bit, or at maybe just not be as bad as a different weakness could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're riding the edge where you're one away from dying on both stats, you deserve to die.
Yeah, I think you hold that for, and one caveat is that my Kelvin experience was very limited. I played a couple of games because we're gonna do this episode. I was kind of saving him to tackle as the last Forgotten Age investigator that I haven't played. So take any of my comments on this episode with a grain of salt, but I feel like, yeah, you kind of hold at 4 at most. Although that being said, I did ride at 5 for curtain call because I needed to, and I was just playing that game of hope it doesn't come back to bite you, which is, I feel like a lot of Calvin is just a risk reward game.
Yeah, I think one big thing is, like, you can ride at 5 on one stat, but as long as you have 4 in the other one, or essentially, if you have 5 damage 4 horror or 4 damage 5 horror, you're okay. Right? Like, you can take one or the other. It's when you're riding 5 and 5 and you don't have until the end of time, that's when you're really, really pushing it.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
So I was going to say, because this is the best thing to mention on a podcast is the art. But Until the End of Time has possibly my favorite art on a player card so far. Like, I don't know what it is, but just like some guy standing on a cliff with a bubble facing this giant behemoth of a creature, and he's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want to see that creature just reach out and just pop the bubble. Just pop.
It makes me think of was
that
it
was
Halo?
Not as strong as I thought it would be.
Was it Halo 3 with the bubble shield? Did you play Halos?
I have not played. I played a little bit of Halo 2, I think, so I will not be the one to ask.
Right on. Yeah, anyways.
It's been a while. I was going to say, before we delve into the deck building, so we've mentioned a few times, but why do people feel that Calvin is so bad? What are the reasons why?
I would think because his stats are 0. Just going on. Like, I mean, he's got zeros, and he's also only 12 points of hit points, right?
Yeah.
We usually see around 14-ish, and usually 12 points of stats. So in order to get him to, say, Lola level, where you have 3s across the board, now you only have 3 health and 3 sanity left, and you're just at 3s across the board. I think his weakness is also his strength, in that you can kind of make Calvin the way you want, where you can have him specialize in a stat, like Agnes having 5 willpower or something. You can get him to 4 or 5 in a stat, but then again, you're riding that line, right, where you might get totally boned.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the main argument that I've heard, is that it basically takes work and danger to get him to on par with other investigators, since he's starting at 0. And then you can get him above that par if you get him up to 4s and 5s. But like we've been talking about, then you're playing a dangerous game, basically.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble. I think I've played 6 games with Calvin. I played a core set campaign. I played a Rougarou, and I've started a Forgotten Age campaign solo with him. I think, remember when Lola came out, and we thought she has a very high skill cap. Like, Lola's going to take a while. It's going to take months of the community trying things, but eventually she's going to be super powerful once we figure out like the ultimate build. And I think we, as a community, have leaned more towards Lola being kind of the clue-getting investigator as opposed to a combat investigator.
Right.
But I don't think she's insanely powerful, and I don't think, like when I talk about skill cap, like if you played 100 games with Lola, I think at around like 10 games, you'd cap out at skill, right? Like if you're the best Arkham player in the world, Lola still isn't the best investigator.
Right.
I think Calvin's skill cap is huge. Like if you have someone who dedicates themselves to playing Calvin, building decks and playing campaigns, you're going to see some ultimate builds. Now, whether that'll happen or not, that we'll see. But I think his skill cap is going to be huge. The other one I think of is Safina. Like, for me, I've played a lot of Safina now because I realize, like, the more and more I play her, the more and more I'm like, wow, there are so many decisions on how to play her with all the events and the painted worlds and deck building and everything like that. I think Calvin is going to be on the par of Safina of deck building, where it's just like constant tinkering and people saying, if we take this awesome deck and just change one card, I think we get like 2% better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's true. I think Calvin has a higher ceiling than Lola ultimately, at least as they exist now, but I think it would take a lot of practice and tinkering. And it's one of those things, this is a campaign game, so I feel like a lot of times myself and maybe others get wrapped up in the idea that you just have to keep playing all these campaigns and not, playing the same scenario more than once. But I think if you are trying to really figure out an investigator like this, it benefits you. I mean, if you're having fun with it. If you don't care, then don't do it. But if you like this kind of thing, I think it benefits you to play the same scenario, like, say, Curtain Call a few times and make those tweaks, because then you can really see what the difference is between different versions of your deck and what is working and what's not against the same scenario.
Yeah, I personally use Midnight Masks as my dipstick kind of thing. Like I think that scenario, because it's one of the intro scenarios, it does a bit of everything, right? It's got combat, it's got investigation, it's got evading, it's got big enemies, it's got parlay. Like it just does everything. And so if you want to test a build, I think Midnight Mass is fantastic. I think the big thing with Calvin is, so when we were talking about Lola in a previous episode, we talked about how every single time the turn starts, you're like, okay, whoa, what do I do? Right? Like if you're playing Mark Harrigan, you're basically like, okay, where's the enemies? I'm going to kill them. Right. And if you're Rex, okay, where are the clues? I'm going to get them. With Lola, you were always like, okay, what role do I need to do? I just drew this card in upkeep or refresh phase. Like, what's my next step? I think Calvin is that as well, but in a different way, because the card you draw off the top of the encounter deck, if it does a horror to you, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, actually, now I can investigate better. So maybe I have a better chance at this. Like, even people have talked about when you get like a ghoul on you that does 1 damage, 1 horror. Well, why not play a turn where you just walk around with them, right? Like, and just take that. And so I think those decisions and that analysis of the game state is gonna be where you see that higher skill cap, where people are gonna be like, no, I made this decision to actually take attacks of opportunity because it made me better. Like, I'd rather investigate, fight, than fight, investigate. Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think even just playing a couple games, I was immediately hitting that realization that well, I need to play this more because
Yeah.
um, I there's no way you can just play Calvin and like there's some investigators like say in Ursula I played and immediately it's like okay I just know what to do. Obviously, it's just kind of straightforward and you know what the whole shtick is, but with Calvin you're never gonna just play him blindly the first time and know what the hell you're doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
you need some time to get used to it because, and this is my own personal opinion. So sorry to anyone who likes Lola, but for me, the reason I like Calvin a lot more than Lola is because I feel like Calvin changes the way you play the game. Because of those considerations, like there were turns where I would just
Mm-hmm.
take the opportunity attacks and do something else or drag enemies around. Whereas Lolo sometimes can feel like you're still playing the same game, just more constricted. you know?
Yeah. You have freedom in deck building, but you're restricted in gameplay.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay. Calvin deck building.
Yes.
What what do you want to build? Because like I'm the one build I had the most success with is focusing on the worst stat with which is agility. Sorry, I'm just trying to make a dig at you.
I'm like, go on.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's preface with okay, what are we building Calvin for? Are we doing like true solo, two player, or like 3 to 4 player?
That is a good question. Um,
Let's let chat decide.
yeah. Let's
So
see if we could get a few votes in.
so type either 1 for single, 2 for 2 player, or or M for 3 to 4. Because I find those are my three designations. Like true solo is one thing, playing as a 2 person team is a very different build. And once you get to 3 or 4, it's very similar in that you're going to have a few people. You can have like a killer mostly, a clover mostly, and then some flex people. Like 2 player, you need a killer and a clover, and solo, solo's just a different game.
Yeah, I feel like that's the big distinction because obviously you're gonna have to cover all the ground. Everything is gonna be directed at you, including the enemies. So it's. I feel like multiplayer, just because of how it works, that your Calvin has a little bit more breathing room, and whereas solo, you're really riding that line even more.
Solo Calvin is top skill cap.
Agreed.
Like, you know what? I'm just gonna make an executive decision here because we're kind of tied in the chat. Let's do multiplayer. Let's do
Okay.
like a 3 to 4 person. And I'm thinking Kelvin really fits in kind of the flex spot because
Agreed.
of how the scenario goes determines how he plays. Because as much as if you're doing solo, I mean the scenario basically does what it does to you, and you have to do everything, and so you kind of ride this weird line. 2 player, I don't think he's as effective because if you want to like specialize him in one thing, the scenario may do another based on his skills. And then what do you do when your fighter all of a sudden has 5 intellect and 2 combat?
Yeah, that's the thing with Calvin. You can't always control. A lot of times you can't control how he's going to be shaped. And that happened to me against Last King. Like, I wanted horror because those are the stats, intellect and willpower, to do the parlay test in that scenario. And I was just not seeing any horror at all, just for 3/4 of the game. So he was stuck at 1 horror. Meanwhile, I was piling up all this damage. Well, I was like, this is great. I can fight, but I can't do these tests for anything. So, yeah, I think agreed on the flex spot. And you kind of have to build him, I think, in that case, to be able to roll with the punches or fill potentially a couple different roles depending on how the encounter deck treats you.
Yeah. You have to be able to kill a few small enemies, Because if you're playing multiplayer, I assume you have a dedicated killer, right? You have someone destroying stuff. You have someone who's dedicated clues, ish. I mean, like it's not a hard and fast rule, but they're going that way. And flex spots are really, I can do both things decently well. Like I'm not going to take out the ghoul priest in one hit, and I'm not going to discover 3 clues at once on a 6 shroud location. But give me 2 or 3 shroud locations, and give me like 2 to 3 health enemies. I can help deal with those.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And potentially, he's not like a good every turn tank, obviously, because his health and sanity thresholds are so low. But at least in the early game, he's a good option for taking some attention from the enemies, because he probably wants to do that anyway.
So one thing I've done with Kelvin when I've been building, and let me know if you want to do this or do something else, is so he can take spirit cards from level 0 to 3. So we're starting at 0 XP. I assume we're building this for a campaign. Let's not think about which campaign. Let's just assume a campaign, and we'll make him just a general, flexible guy. Because I think specific roles and specific campaigns limit this. So this is just, if you're just like, oh man, I want to try Kelvin, this is the deck we're building for you.
Yeah.
Personalized but not
hopefully.
personalized. Yeah. So let's go through this. You want to go through the spirit cards and just see what he can take outside of Survivor and Neutral?
Sure. Yeah, that's generally how I do these things, I think.
So, I'll see you in hell. Each non-elite enemy engaged with you is defeated. You are defeated and suffer 1 physical trauma. It doesn't provoke attacker's opportunity, not that it matters. Well, it may kind of matter. What do you think of that for Calvin? Because I've actually seen this in a few decks, and for multiplayer, I think this is actually decent.
Yeah, this is one that I just glossed right over on solo, because I don't see much use for that. Unless you're trying to like avoid a mental to get physical, but I don't think that's worth it. But yeah, in multiplayer, I think it's worth a look. I don't know about 2 copies, maybe 1 copy.
Let's do 1.
I don't know.
Okay. Ian, remind me, because I know we have different people on the podcast that do different things. Are you a build a deck and then cut back, or are you a guy who likes to get to like 28 cards and then go to 30?
Oh, I'm a build and cut. I usually get up to like 40 and then I'm cutting.
Good. We're at the same way. we're at the same one. So I think you're totally right. I'll See You in Hell is a 1 copy, especially with multiplayer. You can save the team this way and build yourself up for other stuff. The next Spirit Guardian card, Let Me Handle This. After they draw a non-peril card, you take it and you get +2 to your stats. I'm kind of lukewarm on this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like some good cases where you would want to do that. I mean, I can imagine there would be some situations where that might come up, but I feel like Calvin isn't necessarily equipped all the time to handle what the encounter deck is throwing out like a true Guardian would be.
Yeah, I agree. I'm saying 0.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm with you there.
Heroic Rescue. Play when a non-elite enemy would attack another investigator. Engage that enemy and resolve its attack against you, then deal 1 damage. I think this is a good one of, at least.
That's actually not bad for Calvin, if he wants to take that attack and save someone.
Yeah, because it bumps him, and yeah, especially early on in the game, I think it's pretty decent. Yeah.
So 1 of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see the next non-XP card. Pass all the way down to. Oh, that's all Survivor. Rogue, I'm out of here. I actually think, well, part of me thinks 1 of, also because it has the 2 agility pips, which I think Calvin can really take advantage of. The agility and evading and stuff like that, especially when he gets the higher damages and stuff. But also, I'm not sure he wants to resign. I think he wants a bit of trauma.
Yeah, I feel like Calvin's kind of in it for the long haul, usually, so... in terms of like he'd rather just stick around and I guess I see him more as a I'll see you in hell type guy than a I'm out of here guy in terms of like you said, he wants that trauma and maybe doing those big heroic kind of takedowns of the enemies while everyone else gets out.
Well, how about, because we both build the same way, let's throw one in.
Sure.
And we can cut it if we want. Because I think if we're going to kind of do an agility based Calvin, like not totally agility based, but the way he's going to mostly deal with enemies is probably evading. I think is the way I found Calvin to work really well. The 2 agility pips on it helps it a bit too.
Yeah.
Uncage the soul. Useless.
He's not much of a spell slinger.
No. Possibly the best card in the game, Ward of Protection. 3 of?
Yeah, I'm of the mind of throw 2 in, and if we need to cut, then we can go back to it.
The fact that you even mention cutting Ward of Protection makes me think I should do a solo podcast. No, because I think Ward of Protection stops bad things, and he can also upgrade to Ward of Protection level 2, so he can cancel other people's treacheries, and True. It hits him with a single sanity, which he kind of likes. Like,
yeah, that can actually be helpful.
Like, imagine a card that says cancel a treachery, gain +1 willpower and +1 intellect for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking 2 of.
Yeah, let's roll with 2.
Okay. Okay, that's it for spirit cards. So I guess we just go into survivor cards now.
Yep.
Are there any... Because I have a few. Are there any survivor cards that just jump out at you? You're just like, we need 2 of these.
Well, I kind of think that... Well, there are a few. Kind of the foremost thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about building Calvin is what are my soaks going to be? Because if you are writing that line, you're going to want to get stuff out there that's going to soak up damage and horror so that when you're up to 4 or whatever, that you're not taking it all on Calvin. So there's a few options. There's the Cherished Keepsake. There's potentially Peter Sylvester, if we, depending on how we want to go with the ally slot for horror, and then obviously there's the leather coat for damage is kind of the big one there.
So I've already clicked on 2 of for Keepsake and leather coat.
That is fair.
Because I think you just need them. You are going to... Yeah, it helps. It's basically the until the end of time. Like it allows you to ride that line, right? You can go to 4 or 5 and then still have 2 more soak on that side of his damage. So I think if we're going to go a little bit of 80, I think 2 of Peter Sylvester off the top. I mean, we can always cut down, but I think Pete is amazing. And plus, he's another sanity soak.
I would agree with that. That's kind of... I went with Peter for my build. Kind of a... We didn't talk about it yet, but one big question, I think, with Calvin is to Dark Horse or not to Dark Horse? That is the question. Because I think I have seen some people who are going with Dark Horse. Obviously, Madame LeBranche kind of favors that. But I'm kind of feeling not as much emphasis on Dark Horse here. Maybe we're going for the Peter and like the ultimate soaks here.
I don't think I like Dark Horse in this build.
Yeah, that's that. I'm kind of leaning against it as well.
Okay. I'll just go down the survivor cards. Baseball bat, I think no. I think we're going to have other things in our hands. And baseball bat takes up 2.
Well, I'm still bitter of my base. I had a game with Calvin, curtain call, where my fire axe got discarded by an encounter card effect, and then my baseball bat broke on the first hit. So I'm still having some negative feelings towards baseball bat. I do like it more in solo potentially, just because you really want to have those extra copies of weapons just in case. And Calvin doesn't have a lot of options, but for multiplayer, I think we're good without it.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I kind of jumped ahead of ourselves. Are there any more auto includes that you think are out there?
Rise to the Occasion is just like a no-brainer 2 of for me because of the way it works with Calvin, which is it always goes off because it keys off of the base skill value of him, which is 0.
Mm-hmm. Unless the test is 1.
Well, yeah, I guess I should.
But then at that
say
point,
always.
Yeah.
But anytime it counts, I guess.
Yeah. Ungar Slug mentioned this in the chat, and I totally agree, and I had this one before as well. Look what I found. I mean, you're gonna fail, so
yeah.
We've talked a lot about Survivor as a kind of an archetype where people are like, oh, I want to try all these, like, I want to try to fail. I don't think you should ever try to fail, but Calvin is just going to fail.
Yeah.
So expect it. So I think 2 of Look What I Found is pretty good.
I think you kind of have to almost build your deck with 2 halves of the game in mind, too, that in the early game, you're going to be a little bit useless, so you need cards like Look What I Found to make up the difference until you get pumped up, and then at that point, that's when your soak cards coming in and any other cards that are going to let you leverage those stats. But I think you kind of have to build with those 2 parts of the game in mind, and Look What I Found is really good for the early part of the game.
Yep, and having 2 intellect on there, 2 intellect icons, I mean, when you're there with your partner Rex... you can late in the game you can chuck that to him. So, what about Lucky?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2. Okay. Good talk.
I'm like, was that a question?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
How do you feel about Rabbit's Foot in Calvin?
So the only thing about Rabbit's Foot is it conflicts with Cherished Keepsake.
Agreed.
And I think Cherished Keepsake is more important. That being said, because we have Peter Sylvester, I think Rabbit's Foot is a 2 of, and possibly Kelvin takes a single Relic Hunter later on.
Interesting. Yeah, this is kind of how it played out in my solo build, because in solo especially, I wanted that card draw to get the pieces out. But yeah, I could see it. I say we do 2, and we'll see how the rest of the build goes.
Yeah. Any other auto includes that are just jumping out at you? I think
auto includes.
So I think Fight or Flight is like really good.
I
just in
agree with you.
Just in general, and we're going to be probably pushing him to the max.
Yeah,
as far as
there was times with Calvin where because he was rocking 4 horror and then so he's at 4 and then plus you kind of double leverage that with Fight or Flight and you can go up to 8. Yeah. So are you thinking 1 or 2 of Fight or Flight?
Let's do 2 and cut if we don't need it.
Agreed.
Because we are focusing on the agility side, I think Waylay is a good 2 of for now, and we can see where we're going because it kills things. And if we're going with the agility idea, if we're going to focus on that stat, I think Waylay's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the benefit of Waylay in Calvin potentially is because he doesn't have the access to other weapons that some survivors do. That sometimes his raw damage potential can be limited, whereas Waylay, as long as they're not elite, they're just gone. So yeah, I'm down for 2, and we can cut.
Yeah.
As I say that, we're up to 23 cards already, but that's fine.
Yep. Whatever. I mean, my like kind of test build for this episode was 47. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through them. So baseball bat, no.
No.
Dark Horse, I think we're saying no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dig Deep, I don't think so.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think so as well.
Um,
I think you're kind of relying on his ability to boost his stats rather than this thing.
yeah, exactly. Fire Axe, I was kind of thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I think Fire Axe is probably going to be his main weapon. That's going to be somewhat reliable.
So I'm going to throw 2 in.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we say it's one of, I'm just going to throw 2 in.
Yeah.
Gravedigger's Shovel.
It's an interesting one.
Because, I mean, it gets you a clue. That's what but it's only 1 clue. And if we're going for multiplayer, again, it's only 1 clue.
Yeah. I think in solo I'm more inclined towards it. Again, to have a redundant weapon, and because a lot of times there's just 1 clue at a location.
I'm thinking none, actually. Well, you know what? I'd be okay with 1. And we can cut it.
Yeah. Let's go with 1 just so he has another copy of a weapon there, potentially.
Oh, you know, that's a good point. He does need weapons. Because he is going to be a flex. Let's go 2 for now. Because it can do damage. Well, it does +2 fight, but...
Yeah, it's not really increasing the damage, but I guess it does increase the fight.
No. It's good for acolytes or something.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put 2 for now, again,
Okay.
and we'll see how it goes.
Lantern? I really like Lantern, but I don't think it fits in Calvin. Because if he's going to find clues, if he's going kind of cluevery, I think he's already high enough that -1 won't really do much. And I'd much rather just have a flashlight. And dealing 1 damage in a multiplayer game where you probably have a killer, I don't think is much.
Yeah, I think there's just not space for it in the deck, basically. So I would say 0 that.
If we were running specifically Dunwich, I would consider Lantern strongly for whippoorwills.
Yeah.
Like, Lantern is the whippoorwill killer. So.
Yeah, it's worth it just for that alone.
Right.
But here we'll say 0, yeah.
Yeah. Madame Lebranche, she's really good.
Yes.
Are we going to aim to get charisma early on that we'd want to put Madame in?
That's a good question.
Because the other thing, too, is we're probably going to be chucking a lot of cards to skill tests early on. And
she
we're going
helps
to be
with
playing
Fire Axe, too.
Yeah. Let's put 2 in for now.
Yeah.
We can always cut, because we do.
Because I think, to answer your question, I think charisma is probably a good way to go for Calvin, again, because of the soaks. If you're not if you're not going the Dark Horse route, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Newspaper.
I don't like newspaper. In a multiplayer, no.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have clues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scavenging, I think... Because it's specifically investigate, what if we turn into a killer for a scenario? Scavenging is like a dead card.
Yeah, it's a tough one because with... This came up when I was building my solo deck. I really want to take scavenging so that I can recur the keepsake and leather coat and have that just constant cycle of soaks. But I think it's a case of not enough deck space, not enough bandwidth, and like you said, it just might not come up to be useful, and it's hard to justify a card that's not going to be, guaranteed pulling its weight.
Yeah, and I think scavenging... If you are looking to pull back leather coats or cherished keepsakes, you're probably losing that scenario. Like, you've already gotten through so much damage, there's so many enemies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's... If scavenging is going to save you, it's not actually going to save you.
And if we're going the charisma route, then potentially that's kind of a replacement, just in the sense that we're getting more soaks out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Speaking of charisma, stray cat. I think because we're going agility, we just pass because we'll be doing evading anyways.
Yeah, I don't think we have the slots for that.
Okay. A chance encounter. I don't think it's really worth it.
I don't think so, because we don't have the allies we have aren't necessarily the type where we're just like discarding
one and
them
done.
and getting. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So no.
Okay. Bait and switch.
No.
Okay. Cunning distraction. No.
I don't think so.
Dumb luck. Oh man, for multiplayer, I don't think so, because we're planning to pass our evasion attempts. You know what I mean? Like, if there's going to be any test we pass, it's going to be agility. I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see potentially interesting, like, if your Guardian Killer is the one who's drawing the top card of the encounter deck, then maybe, but again, it's one of those things where maybe isn't good enough for finding room for it.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to 0 on that.
Yeah. Definitely not in solo, obviously.
Hello again.
This card is certainly a 3 to 4 player card. Yeah, I think 0. Hiding spot. I don't like it. I like the icons, but what we're going for, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a card that I like in certain builds, certain investigators. Here, I'm not sure. It's like I could see potentially it's like as a flex, maybe it's something you throw down and everyone gets through, but I think ultimately it just doesn't feel like it's going along with what we're trying to do.
Yeah. You know, I'd be okay. Let's do one hiding spot just to keep it in our mind. Because it can help out the team. And if we are a flex spot, it's kind of our idea. And it has 2 agility icons, so it's not completely lost on us. But
yeah.
Improvised weapon. This is an awesome card, first of all. The design of it, I just love.
Yeah.
I think we take 1 of, but part of me thinks 2 or 0.
You're right, yeah. I think...
Because currently our damage doing things is Fire Axe and Gravedigger Shovel. Fire Axe is great. Gravedigger Shovel is decent as a weapon.
I think the question is, it would be a matter of do we want this or Gravedigger Shovel? I don't know if we run both.
Yeah, I choose Shovel. Because there's no way to discard this. Like, it doesn't have icons. So you'd have to hit for
Do
1 and then hit for twice.
Right. And then it shuffles back in. And...
Yeah. I'm going to go 0.
Yeah, I'm fine with going 0 on it.
Okay. Oops.
I'm
tempted.
The funny thing is, I feel like if there is an investigator to take it, it would be Calvin in multiplayer.
Yeah. Let's do 1 of, just to keep it in the idea.
Just to be a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. We have Waylay. Okay.
Not without a fight. I do not like it.
I think I would include it if we were going more of a heavy skill build, but I feel like how this is playing out, that we're probably going to include other skills instead.
Sounds good to me. Last chance.
I'm a no on that one. I don't think.
Very good.
Yeah.
Say
no more.
Yeah. Resourceful is one of those cards. If I'm building a survivor or anyone with a decent amount of survivor cards, I just put 2 of, and then I find a reason to cut it if I want to later.
Yeah, I am more and more in the resourceful fan club, so you won't hear an argument for me for 2 of that.
Because this does what you wanted, like, scavenging to do, right? Like, if you do happen to need a leather coat, you can get it.
Sure. or all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Flight, reusing. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. I would argue it's one of the most powerful skills in the game.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Survival instinct. Because we're going agility, it seems maybe good.
Right.
But I don't like it. I still don't like survival instinct.
I feel like the level 2 would be better where it actually evades them as opposed to in multiplayer, which might be helpful if you can evade a chunk of enemies, versus the level 0, which is just disengaging. But I think that's a choice to be made down the road, and there's not really a reason to include the base level if it's not pulling its weight.
Yeah.
So,
and after the
0.
After the podcast, we can discuss suggestions for upgrades or whatever, and I'll type something up in the comments or whatever. But I agree with you. Level 2 is great. Level 0 is subpar.
Yeah. So we're sitting at 33 cards, and we still have some neutrals to look through.
I think neutrals are going to go pretty quick.
I agree.
So backpacks out there, I love the design of backpack. Just throwing that out there. But it takes up a body slot, and so does leather coat, and I just do not like backpack for him.
Yeah, that's a non-bow.
Okay. Okay. Fine clothes, I think we throw 2 of in and cut it later if we need to.
Yep, it sounds like a sound policy.
Flashlight.
We have a request to go over what's in our deck real fast.
Oh, okay. So okay, let's do before neutrals. In our hand, we have 2 fire axe, 2 gravedigger shovels. In our accessory slots, we have 2 chairs keepsake, 2 rabbit's foot. Body, we have 2 leather coats. Allies, we have 2 Madame Lebranche and 2 Peter Sylvester. Events, holy shit, 15. 1, I'll see you in hell. 1, I'm out of here. Kind of the same. 2, look what I found. 2, fight or flight. 1, heroic rescue. 1, hiding spot. 2, lucky. 1, oops. 2, wards of protection. 2, waylays. And for skills, we have 2 resourcefuls and 2 rise to the occasion.
So we're a little light on skills so far. Going into the neutrals, but we'll see. Okay, so we got the 2 fine clothes. Flashlight?
I mean, I'm going to throw 2 in there because it's part of my Holy Trinity, right? My Holy Trinity is flashlight, emergency cash, unexpected courage. You just throw those 6 cards in a deck, and then you cut them later if you need to. But I think
the thing I do like about Flashlight for Calvin is getting those 2 shrouds down to 0 when he's, starting out with 0 intellect or 1 intellect and getting that auto success.
And if he's going to be kind of that flex guy, Flashlight is really a good neutral card for a flex person. Because let's say he's at 3 intellect and he's at a 3 shroud location, he's already at +2. If you're playing on standard, +2 is great. You add a single, you put in resourceful in there. Now you're at +3. You're probably going to get a card. I really like Flashlight.
Yeah.
Okay. Knife, garbage.
Nope.
Kukri, garbage.
Pass.
Painkillers and smoking pipe. I feel like these are mistakes. Like the idea behind them, if someone puts 2 painkillers, 2 smoking pipes to throw damage and horror around is a really neat idea, but because I feel like it's wasting time.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea that you could rearrange his stats as wanted, but I think it's a case of a great idea that's too cute in the actual heat of play.
That's what I'm going.
So I would say I would pass on it. Yeah.
Yep. Calling in favors. I don't think we have the allies that we want for that. Our allies are permanent. I don't like calling in favors for us.
Nope, I agree.
Okay. Emergency cash. I'm just putting 2 of. You don't have any say in this.
Fair.
So let's talk about the what we call the desperate skills. So Desperate Search and Run for Your Life and all this stuff, they are actually pretty decent in Calvin because you're going to get to 3 or fewer remaining sanity quite quickly. I would pass on Desperate Search.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I feel like this plays into what I was talking about with the two halves of the game. Because if you take the desperate ones, then you're obviously going to be really just solid, just passing a lot of tests later on once you get to that 3 or fewer, which, like you said, doesn't take long. But then you're not going to have skills to help you with the early game when you really need skills to bump you up. And kind of the vice versa is the case as well. So I guess it's a question of what role do we see the skills playing? Like, are we really trying to shore up the first few rounds, or is it we are looking to build like the Uber Calvin later on, and we're just fine with him failing early?
I think I'm fine with him failing early. Like, I just assume that that's what's going to happen because he has zeros. With having Look What I Found and Flashlight / Gravedigger Shovel, I think I don't want Desperate Search.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Guts, I'm going to say no. Because I think most willpower tests, you're testing to not receive like damage or horror, and we're okay with taking a bit or more.
Yeah, I think early on the willpower tests, you're really trying to, sometimes you almost want to fail them. If they're dealing horror, that is. If it's something crappy like Frozen and Fear, then that's a different story. But where you really want to pass the will test is later on when they can potentially knock you out if things go poorly. So that could be potentially a place where maybe we look at Say Your Prayers instead.
Okay.
So why did we have a question in the chat? Why did we say no to improvised weapon? And what investigators would you take it in as a 2 of?
Ashcan and Wendy.
Because he doesn't have a good way to discard it. We were just thinking it's not as reliable as the Gravedigger shovel. But yeah, Wendy
or
and
Fire
Ash would be great for that.
Yeah, because it has no icons. You can chuck it away, or you cannot chuck it away. But in Wendy and Ashcan, they have like just an auto chuck ability. So yeah. Okay, so next we have manual dexterity. I'm iffy on this one. Like, I kind of feel like Run for Your Life is what we want, but manual dexterity is also good.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it depends on if we're gonna go. Let's desperate with it,
because I could totally see 3 total of manual dexterity and Run for Your Life if we're kind of going that agility way, which I think we are, because manual dexterity also draws you a card.
Yeah, which is
and by the time we're running for our life, we already have 3 agility.
Sure. Okay, let's roll with 2 of and see where we go.
Okay. Overpower, I think no. Like, we're not really set up for decent fighting. Like, we got Fire Axe and Shovel.
Well, we have the Fire Axe and Shovel. I tend to always be attached to Overpower just because of how important combat can be. But I think maybe potentially we could look at something like Reckless Assault instead. If we think about the fact you get with an enemy, it's going to ping you and damage you. That's going to raise you and get you within desperate range. And you probably don't need to knock it out right away.
Yeah.
So.
And if we are doing multiplayer, we probably have someone who's doing most of the killing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All
right, Perception is next. I think hard pass.
Yeah, we already passed on Desperate Search, and I think for a similar reason.
Reckless Assault. We totally just talked about it. I think one of is decent.
That's kind of where I was leaning. One of is a flyer on a really important test.
Run for Your Life. Let's throw the 2 in, and then we can see what happens. Say your prayers. I think I'm okay with one.
One, yeah, let's go with one.
Because like you said, those willpower tests near the end of the game, you might have 3 or 4 willpower, and you just want to make sure you're well above so it doesn't kill you, whatever the test is.
Yeah.
And then the third part of the Holy Trinity is unexpected courage. I'm throwing 2 up for now, and we can totally cut it. Because there have been decks that I don't include the Holy Trinity in, but they're few and far between.
They really have to make a strong case.
I mean, like, unless I'm making Dark Horse, Emergency Cash just is basically an auto 2 of for me.
Yeah. So we're at 47 cards. We need to cut 17.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So generally I like to pick the low-hanging fruit first, the ones that are kind of the bubble cards. So are there any that you see are sticking out to you as kind of the sore thumbs?
Oops.
Agreed.
Okay.
Cut oops. We had 1 copy in, so we're down to 46. Oops.
Great progress.
I'm kind of thinking hiding spot as well. It's a nice idea, but
Yeah. It's kind of cutesy as opposed to...
yeah.
Yeah.
So we cut the 1 copy of oops. We're down to 40. Hiding spot. So we're down to 45.
Heroic Rescue... no, I think Heroic Rescue is actually decent. I don't know. You know what? Let's go through skills first, because I feel like skills we can start cutting easily.
Okay.
I think Rise to the Occasion 2 of stays, Resourceful 2 of stays, Manual Dexterity, and Run for Your Life.
Let's do this. Let's use the handy charts and see where our icons are at. So we have 9 will icons right now, 10 intellect, 16 combat, and 22 agility. so we're definitely heavy on the agility. We're decent combat, and will and intellect are the ones that are a little lower there.
I mean, it also helps to mention we have 15 wild, which is just insane.
Yeah.
So what about taking out 1 Run for Your Life and 1 Manual Dexterity?
Since we're so heavy on agility, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah? Okay. I like that change.
That'll give us a bit of a best of both worlds.
Say Your Prayers. I think we need it in the deck. I think it's a good one of. Especially looking at the chart, we're at 9. It's our lowest one. And like you said, it can save us from dying, which we're kind of okay with most of the time. But
there are times, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 1 manual dexterity, resourceful. I'm gonna argue for not cutting.
Yeah.
And Rise to the Occasion as well. I think those are the core skills.
I'm okay with, for now, cutting 1 unexpected courage.
That's a big step for you, Scott.
It is. I mean, I still have 5, including 1 expected courage, I have 5 other of the Holy Trinity, so... But I think we just have a lot of really good skill icons in this deck. Oh, man, that hurts. You know what, let's cut other things first.
Okay. Let's keep 2 for now.
Let's go...
Because we have 18 assets and 15 events.
So I think we have to go to assets, because we are really high.
I feel like it's a little bulky there.
Let's talk about our accessory slot.
Okay.
Rabbit's Foot.
Yeah, how much do we want that draw? If this was solo, I would say you're going to take it from my cold dead hands, because I want that draw. Multiplayer?
We have a Manual Dexterity. We have 2 Resourcefuls. We have a Madame Lebranche. I think we can cut Rabbit's Foot fully.
Yeah, I also think, because we were kind of throwing around the idea of Relic Hunter, but I think if we're going to go Charisma, which I think is the smarter move, I don't see us going both Relic Hunter and Charisma.
Yeah, I feel like Rabbit's Foot is not worth Relic Hunter. Yeah.
Okay, so let's cut it.
Okay.
We're down to 41.
Okay. Body
Fine clothes? Yeah. For the body slot?
Ooh. I mean, I think fine clothes. I think we can cut fine clothes fully, but it depends on the campaign you're going into.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing Carcosa, like you take fine clothes and you find space for it. If you're doing the core, I don't think you do it. Dunwich barely, except for a few scenarios. As much as it hurts me, I think we can cut fine clothes fully.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's nice having another soak, but it's just a case of too much. We got to cut something, and I think fine clothes should go. That takes us down to 39.
39. Okay, 9 more cards. Let's look at events. Look for some more low-hanging fruit. So I'll see you in hell.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think we cut. I'm out of here. I'm kind of inclined.
Yeah, I think we cut. I'm out of here. As much as it hurts me to say, because I think it's a fantastic one of in like any deck that can take it, but it just doesn't fit Calvin.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be out of there.
Yeah, no, he wants to stay in there.
Yeah,
Look what I found. We have to keep.
strong.
So emergency cash. Okay, let me just. I want to look over our cost curve on the charts.
Yeah, good idea.
The thing with emergency cash is it offers you an amazing start. However, looking at Kelvin, how many zero cost cards? We have 7. Maybe we drop it.
Because if we think about what's our setup, what's our rig looking like, it's pretty much like keepsakes and coats. Of course, that's 0.
We can't say
have
rig because that game's canceled.
That's officially been that was part of the license too, so we can't say that.
Yeah.
The fire axe is cheap. The allies are relatively cheap for allies. Yeah, I think I'm okay with cutting it. I don't know.
So our events, look what I found is 2. I mean, I also like it as you play emergency cash, you set up 2 things, and then you have money to play events. But our events are like Waylay is 3. The
Waylay's
rest
is the outlier.
because we have 0. Yeah, like look what I found is a huge 2 cost. Holy crap, we're gonna cut emergency cash.
Yeah, if there's a class where I cut it, sometimes it's Survivor, and this seems like a good candidate for it, just because I think
Yep.
the cost curve is just it's making the decision for us.
My Trinity. Fight or Flight, I think, is an auto keep.
Yeah, I love that card.
Heroic Rescue. I think in multiplayer we still keep. Maybe not.
So let's see. What is it getting us at the end of the day? It's getting us some extra damage or horror, which is going to help build us up. It does the damage to the enemy. More than anything, it's helping out someone else.
It could
multiplayer.
Yeah, it could help our clue gatherer. And as a flex spot, I think that might be important. But we have a dedicated killer, and we have Waylay, and we have fighter. Like, I think we cut Heroic Rescue. I'm willing to hear arguments against, but
no, I'm down with it. I think it's a card that I like the idea of for Calvin a lot, but I think ultimately he can probably just engage the enemy and
evade them.
Obviously, that's simplifying the issue a bit. But Okay, so we're down to 35. 5 more to go. Jeez, how is it there's still 5 more to go?
I don't even know. Let's look over skills again, super quick. Manual Dexterity is good for card draw, which is why we cut Rabbit's Foot. Reckless Assault, because we don't have many weapons and we don't have ones that are doing like 2 or more damage. Like, I feel like Reckless Assault is something you use on like Lightning Gun.
Yeah, we also have fight or flight, which we can even potentially recur with resourceful.
And
We have fire
currently,
axe, which is can bump us up a ton in some cases.
combat icons were at 15, which is the most of any category.
Yeah, it is now the highest. Okay, cut it.
Okay.
34. Okay.
You know what? It's funny. I love sharing this moment with you and other people because there's two ways you build a deck. There's one where you like throw in a couple key cards and slowly add things, and there's one where you just like pile everything in and cut.
Yeah.
And I think this is the more stressful way of doing it.
It is. Well, it kind of shifts the stress from there's no stress in the early part because you can include anything, and then the last cuts are always so hard. Whereas the other way, the stress is up front where you have to stress about keeping under the limit from the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, these last 3 or 4 cards are always brutal. I think if there's places we have to look, our skills are at 9, which is pretty healthy, I think. We have 6 cards in our hand slot, which could be a good thing or it could be a place to cut. We have our 4 allies, which depends on if we still want to go the charisma route or not.
I think we do also just because Madame Labranche has 2 health and 2 sanity for 2 costs, and upgraded Peter is insanely good.
Yeah, I really like the charisma Calvin approach. So, okay, hand slots. We have 2 fire axes, 2 flashlights, and 2 shovels. Is there any give there?
I actually think no, because we have 2 weapons, 2 clue finding things, and then 2 does both. Right? Like we have the fire axe that kills, flashlight gets clues, Gravedigger's shovel does kind of double duty.
Obviously, we're not going to get rid of our soaks. So it's going to have to be in the events and the skills then where we cut.
Well, Unexpected Courage is there. And as much as I love it, I think we cut both of them.
This is the day where Scott kills his idols.
Because if we cut both of them, we're down to 32 cards. And Unexpected Courage is fantastic. It's really good in Calvin, though. Because you don't know what you're getting, but he also just gets things really high. But also our icons are... once we cut it, we're very good on icons. Like, it's a very even spread.
It'll be an even spread, yeah, because we have, 13, so we'll be down to 9. Yeah, that'll be pretty even across the board. Okay, I'm gonna take this ride with you. we're going down the top of the roller coaster.
I mean, the other thing too is a lot of our other cards have decent icons.
They do.
So skill cards are whatever. I don't know. You can use other ones. We have to cut 2 cards.
2 more cards, jeez. I feel like 7 is kind of a floor for the skills here. I don't know if we want to go...
No, I think our skills are good. So with skills, just for everyone listening, 1 manual dexterity, 2 resourceful, 2 rise to the occasion, 1 run for your life, 1 say your prayers. I think that's where we are.
It's worth mentioning that rise to the occasion is kind of our Unexpected Courage equivalent, an even better version in Calvin, so I think that makes that a little bit less painful to cut Unexpected Courage.
Yeah.
A little bit. Oh boy. So it's really going to be an event or an asset. Event, we have 1 LCU in Hell, 2 Liquid Eye Founds, 2 Fighter Flights, 2 Luckies, 2 Wards of Protection, and 2 Waylays.
What do you think of a Waylay? Because... I mean, it's the highest cost. It drops down our curve, and we don't have emergency cash anymore. We're fighting little enemies with Fire Axe and Gravedigger Shovel for the big enemies, the bigger non-elite enemy, because it also only targets non-elites. I think we can get rid of 1 Waylay.
Yeah, I would say at least 1 Waylay.
Are you thinking 2?
Potentially, but I'm not sure. But I think at least 1. There's a lot of decks where I run 1 Waylay instead of 2, actually, because of the cost and sometimes that occasion really comes up only once in a game where you really just need to nuke an enemy. And so I like one Waylay instead of two a lot of times. So one more card to cut. It could be Waylay. It could be... What else
I think
could it be?
Ungar's Thug in the chat nailed it. I think it's Gravedigger Shovel. Because, and it goes with my logic from before. We have Fire Axe kills, Flashlight finds clues, Gravedigger's kind of the flex. Let's get rid of one of the flexes. And it loosens our hand slot a bit. Like our pressure on it.
Yeah. I think it goes down to 3 weapons, and we don't... But on the other hand, we're running a kind of a more agility-focused Calvin, who's going to be like evading enemies and just wailing on them when they're evaded, and Gravedigger's Shovel doesn't deal extra damage anyway. So,
I mean,
yeah,
the auto clue find is nice, but that's probably only nice once a game because we're probably going to have a cluer person.
Yeah, are we going to pay 2, take up a hand slot twice in a game to get a... yeah, I think it's probably going to be once.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Let's go down to 1.
Yeah. And not to mention, like, so we have Fire Axe and 1 Gravedigger Shovel, but we also have, like, Fight or Flight. We have Waylay. We have Manual Dexterity. Run for your life. Like, we have a lot of ways of dealing with enemies that is either damage or not damage. Like, obviously that's the only 2 ways, but Gravedigger Shovel is just so in the middle, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of see this as he's not your killer for your group, obviously. He's more the disruptor. Like, he's going to get in there, evade them, or engage them, or, you know, he's basically running interference more than anything, I feel like, in picking off the smaller enemies.
Yeah, he's dealing with the Acolytes, the Whippoorwills, the 222 ghouls. Yeah.
Doing the dirty work. So our final deck is 13 assets, 2 Fire Axe, 2 Flashlight, 1 Gravedigger Shovel, 2 Keepsakes as accessories, 2 leather coats for the body. For ally slot, 2 Madame Lebranche, 2 Peter Sylvester, 10 events. We have 1 LCU in Hell, 2 Liquid Eye Founds, 2 Fighter Flights, 2 Luckies, 2 Wards of Protection, 1 Waylay, and 7 skills, 1 Manual Dexterity, 2 Resourcefuls, 2 Rise to the Occasions, 1 Run for Your Life, and 1 Say Your Prayers.
It's very interesting that we came up with these numbers, because today on Facebook, there was a conversation about one guy talking about how in Magic he had a way of, like, kind of like a stereotypical build, certain amount of lands, creatures, events, whatever. And I threw out, like, and he's kind of like, what's the thing for Arkham? And I was like, you know what? A super basic one is 12 assets, 10 events, 8 skills, right? Like, that's just a general guideline. There's, you know, if you build Safina that way, first of all, you have an illegal deck because you don't have 33, but you don't build Safina that way. But it's just a good general rule for beginner players. It's interesting that we came so close to that. Like, we're 13, 10, 7 instead of 12, 10, 8. So
yeah, I agree. That's kind of the general rules. You're more assets. You're kind of, you know, around that range, 13 to 15. Then events a little fewer, and then skills in that kind of 6 to 8 range. I know I've seen a lot of people say, well, you can't establish a base rule because every investigator is different, which is true. But I also find, having been a new player to Lord of the Rings back in the day, that advice was not helpful to me. And those basic rules, even if there's plenty of exceptions, are super helpful when you're a new deck builder. And in Lord of the Rings, the rule was like 25 allies, which is half the deck, and then half each of the other 25 for events and attachments. And that I did that for a while, and then it's kind of like I had a music professor who was saying that some of his students just want to improvise right away and break all the rules, but it's like, first you have to learn and get down the rules really well, and then you know how to break them. You got to know the rules first before you can improvise, before you can break them. So
I think in like episode 15 or 16, whichever one was our, like, we post to people who are new. It's like, hey, listen to this episode. This is where we go through all the, like, everything you need to know as a new player. That's it, right? Like, you need to learn the rules before you break the rules. So 12, 10, 8 is a decent rule. let's roll the random weakness and see what we get, each of us. Just for fun.
Yeah. I don't think we've done that before, but that's a good
All
idea.
right.
Okay.
What'd you get? Because I think I got a good one.
Mine is Silver Twilight Acolyte.
Gross. I got hypochondria.
Oof.
So you can pump out those stats really quick.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. What would be the worst weakness for Calvin?
Whew. I don't even know, actually.
Something that just hits you with surprise, horror, and damage, maybe?
Overzealous, maybe? Overzealous is just...
Oh god, Stubborn
heinous.
Detective.
Oh!
ability.
Yep. Winner.
Oh my god, yeah, that's the winner.
Yep. Hungar's Thug, you win.
Oh god.
Yep. Stubborn Detective. Hey, you're blanked. Also, you're 0.
Man.
It's like double blank.
That is a case where if I drew that for my random in solo, I'd be like, yep, I'm redrawing that.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
All right.
Okay. Nice. I would just give a quick shout out to, on our Twitter, a user by the name of The Black Orifice, nice name, shared his or her Calvin deck build. So if you want to find that, it's under the name of Calvin done right on ArkhamDB, so you can see a different take on Calvin.
Ooh. I'm going to publish this one, although I'll probably throw up a description later. It's Calvin Wright Mythos Busters build.
I think this is the kill your idols deck, because we killed Unexpected Courage and we killed... What else did we kill? Emergency Quiche. Only the flashlight survived.
Yep, that's it. Oh, turns out I actually can't publish it because I didn't do a write-up. So,
okay. We can do that later. Yeah.
We will do that later. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I think we have very similar deck building ideas and the way we build decks. Like, we think similar.
Yeah.
So
I think so.
Let's move on to... Well, let's announce our contest. Because you have, like, half an hour left to put in your thing. We had a mysterious benefactor give us 2 copies of The Forgotten Age. And we're going to give it away to 2 people. Basically, what I want you to do is call into our Mythos Busters line. You basically leave a message. There's a nice little, like, answering machine there. And just, we want you to tell us about your slang that you have for the game. So any neat little names you have for cards or things happening or certain token pulls. If your example is you pull the tentacle and you yell the F word, that's just basically everyone, so that's not unique. But let us know, like, your group's little culture thing. Do you have a nickname for certain cards, kind of like how we have Emergency Quiche or the Mississippi Manatee for Leo DeLuca? I should probably pull up the phone number to actually tell people, but so we're going to be picking winners pretty soon. If you're listening to this live, call in right away. If you're listening to this on the recording, we mentioned it last episode and on our Facebook page. So if you've missed that, sorry.
Yeah, our hotline number is 203-493-MYTH.
203-493-MYTH?
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you go to our Facebook page and click on the Call Now button, if you're, like, on your cell phone, go to Facebook, hit Call Now, it dials the right number. So that's also an easy way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, tentacle time.
Yes. Tentacle time is a thing. I love how we're always like, oh, this episode's going to be a short one for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's always like 2 hours later.
Hey, remember that time when we went 2 hours, you and me building a deck? Cool.
I know, this is going to be a legendary moment. Tentacle time.
Yep.
Well, we mentioned Netrunner a few times, so one thing is I'm going to be filling out the collection of stuff for Netrunner that I never collected. I always loved the game. I still love the design. I absolutely love the Android world.
Mm-hmm.
Cyberpunk is my jam, so I'm really hoping we see more games in that world, which I think we will, more than likely. They're not going to just let it linger.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the point is I'm buying up the packs that I'm missing, and I think people can go a few different ways. I think for a lot of players who are just interested in tournaments, it's like, well, the game's dying, so there's no point, sell my collection. But for me, it's always just been a casual game. And so I'm just gonna, now that it's ending, I know I'll have the whole collection. It's not gonna expand anymore. I'll be able to find the perfect storage solution, and I'll just have a game that I can build some decks for and play as kind of just a kitchen table game. So that's
Nice.
one thing. The other thing is I've been playing a mobile game, which is called Techno Babylon. And it's on iOS. I'm not sure if it's on Android, but it's in the style of the old like point and click adventure style games like Monkey
Ooh.
Island, but it's in a cyberpunk world. Speaking of, and so one of the cool things is you can in your inventory is a button you can click on to go into the trance, which is like the virtual world. Plugging into that. So it kind of makes for some interesting puzzles that sometimes you have to like go back and forth between those worlds to figure out what items you need, what combinations, and all that kind of thing. So it's a really good game so far. That's Techno Babylon.
Oh. Speaking on the Android, or the Netrunner destruction. I mean, like, Wizard of the Coast took back the license or whatever happened, and I think it's the mechanics they have a license on, and like Netrunner the name. So like we will see more Android games, I
Yes.
think, because that's a FFG original. But yeah, the card game it's the mechanics and the Netrunner name. So
Yeah, because I think the original Netrunner CCG was set in the Cyberpunk 2020 world, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me. And then when FFG took it, they said, okay, yoink, we'll take the mechanics, but put it in the Android world, because that's our world.
yeah.
So I think there's a big event, the final Netrunner tournament coming up in the fall, and I wouldn't be surprised if something new gets announced there. Not necessarily an LCG, but maybe another board game or something they have in the Android world.
Mm-hmm. I did the similar thing to you, Ian, when, Conquest was my, like, flagship game, podcast and everything like that. And when it died, I was like, oh, should I sell my collection? But I was like, no, you know what? I have it all. I have a bunch of promos, full art cards. It's going to be a game that, 10 years from now, I teach my son, and we play kitchen table, and I have the whole set and everything like that. I'm sure Conquest had a fans doing expansions. I wasn't a huge fan of the expansions, so I haven't followed it at all. But I'm sure Netrunner will have the same. Like, there's going to be a core group of fans that are like, let's keep on making product, essentially. And it's just like print and play. So there's that option. And then I also play Star Wars, which also died. And again, I did the same thing, but like, I have the full collection, and now I'm going to have, just like I did with Conquest, forgot to mention that, I made a bunch of decks. So I now have like 7 decks in Conquest to play against each other. You know what I mean? Like, so if someone's like, oh, I want to learn a new game. I'm like, oh, come play this. And we can kind of play it as like a tabletop game. Same thing with, like a board game. Same thing with Star Wars. I made some dueling decks. So this deck is really fun to play against this deck because of theme. Like, it's like a Hoth battle deck. And then there's, the other 2 decks are Andor battle decks. The other 2 decks are, like, whatever. So,
yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't want these games to die, and I don't think anyone wants them to. I don't want Netrunner to die, but there is a certain comfort in knowing that's it. Like, that's the collection. Like, sometimes when a game is ongoing, it's kind of stressful, especially if you're not totally in it. It's more like you enjoy, but you're not totally in it. That it's like, okay, well, if I collect it, then am I going to have to collect everything? And it's just going to keep expanding, and I'm going to keep having to find new ways to store it as it gets bigger. But it's nice having that comfort that, that's the pool that it's ever going to be, and you just kind of are able to just, do stuff with it, like you mentioned, just treat it as a board game.
Mm-hmm. Technical time for me. So I have to preface this with I've been wanting a Nintendo Switch for a long time. Like, basically, ever since I saw it, I was like, that is a cool thing. And then all the reviews of Breath of the Wild, the Zelda game, came out. And there was tons of magazines and review sites basically saying, it is the best game in 20 years, period. No caveats, not like best for Nintendo, best for PC. No, just best game in 20 years. And I was like, wow, I as a gamer, I should probably play that game.
Yeah.
And it kind of came to a point where my new assignment at work, so I'm a paramedic, and we have these single-person units, and I have an SUV, essentially, instead of an ambulance. And basically, they put these SUVs in places where we don't have stations, and so there's not very good ambulance coverage. So basically, you call 911, I show up, I can do everything an ambulance can as a single person, except I can't take you to the hospital. But an ambulance is coming, but you get a paramedic within like 2 or 3 minutes instead of 8 or 9 minutes.
Right.
So I'm on this position that is like the edge of the city. We have a ring road going around our city. I'm outside the ring road. Like it's I am in nowhere. And we also don't have a station there. So we actually rent a hotel room at like the Hampton Inn. And that is my
interesting.
My air quotes station. And because this is a new expansion and this is like the suburbs of the suburbs of the suburbs, I don't want to say very little work, but I don't get too many calls. So I bought a Nintendo Switch.
Nice. Because
I needed to pass the time. And Breath of the Wild is everything everyone told me about. Like, it is absolutely amazing. I also bought Mario Odyssey and Mario Kart, just as 2 other games to play.
Right.
And I played a couple games of Mario Kart. It was fun. Mario Odyssey, I went kind of like through the tutorial area or whatever. It was super fun. And then I started playing Breath of the Wild, and I haven't stopped.
Yeah.
So
sounds about right.
It's absolutely amazing. So if anyone's on Nintendo Switch and you have like friend code, this is all new to me because I'm not a huge Nintendo guy, but send me your friend code and we'll be friends. And I don't know what that does. Yeah. That's nice. Technical time for me. It's pretty much that. Right on. Ian, any closing comments before I do the final smorgasbord of information?
I don't think so. Just gonna get some more plays of Threads of Fate up soon, hopefully.
Very good. So, if you're on iTunes, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us get kind of to the top of the algorithm. So if anyone searches Arkham, they'll see Mythos Busters and hopefully get involved with our community. If you name a host and an impression, we'll read your review on the show in that impression. We haven't had one in a while, so I don't know, make a fake account and do more. Because I think they're hilarious, especially when the host doesn't know who they're impressioning. But
yeah. What would be a good one for Nick or Sean to do since they're not here?
Ooh. Sean, Marilyn Monroe, and Nick, Vladimir Putin. There we go.
Sure.
I don't know. Sure. Those are 2 people that sound very distinctive.
I want someone to suggest Korg from Ragnarok. But
you know what, actually, because Nick is very much a theater guy and acting and all this stuff and expanding his mind with roles and stuff, leave a review where he has to read it in Groot. Good luck.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Questions or comments, concerns, gripes, bitches, or moans, call the Mythos Busters hotline, especially in the next hour, to throw in your what do you call it? The thing where we give away things. Competition? No.
Giveaway.
Contest? There we go. Contest. There we go. God, I am too tired. 203 203-493-MYTH, 203-493-MYTH, and that's 6984. Tune into the Miskatonic AV Club. We do in-depth card reviews. I have a few episodes I'm going to edit out, and we'll have them out in the next weekish. If you want to email us, mythosbusterspod@gmail.com. Twitter, it's @mythosbusters. Our website, mythosbusterspodcast.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/mythosbusters. Discord/me, or discord.me/mythosbusters. And yeah, those are all the places you can reach us. We have a lot of places we can interact with people.
Yep. Our tentacles are everywhere.
They're infiltrating time and space. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Have a good night.